much to her to kind of enlighten me and lead me to a spiritual path where I could find that balance, with God, where I could find a balance with the feminine energy and the masculine energy. I needed that balance. I needed that help. And within days of praying for that, I found the devotees in the subway, and I found them doing Harinam. And I had come in contact with the devotees before, kind of like, again, Angelika Prabhu had mentioned, I had seen them before. I grew up in New York City, so you always see the devotees, thankfully. And I had received books from them, but when I opened up those books, it was just like gibberish. I couldn't understand anything that was in the books. Literally, it was just like, I don't know. But I knew that there was something special to them, so I kept them. And I moved, and I went through different phases of my life, and they were still there with me. And but this time when I met the devotees in 2015 in the subway, and I was just at the right point. And when they gave me that pamphlet that says on chanting Hare Krishna, that the back has that beautiful smiling photo of Srila Prabhupada, it felt like, okay, I can do this. And I read that pamphlet, just completely on the subway on the way home. And it felt like I understood everything that Prabhupada was talking about. Everything that was in there, I understood. I immediately, like any modern bhakti, I Googled it, and I found 26 Second Avenue giving Gita classes on Saturdays. And I started attending those. And then eventually Krishna blessed me with the association of all the devotees at the Bhakti Center. And I was doing Sunday school there until Paul Mazzella, who's on the call, he's my husband, until Paul and I moved down here to Gainesville, Florida. And then I just try to continue doing my seva of doing classes for the kids. I do it now online via YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that my husband helps me kind of put together and continue. And then I do Zoom
put
classes.
That in the chat box, Paul. Put that channel in the chat box. We're all children. I'm a child at heart.
Yes, and that's where I have like my puppet stories and my songs and things of that sort. So that's my elevator speech of how I came to Krishna consciousness. I hope, though it was short, you still kind of got the sense of it. So to start, dear devotees, I want to humbly ask for the blessings of every devotee that's on this call today, and all the devotees that I know will be listening to the recording that couldn't make it. Just may I speak in this class in a way that glorifies God and that inspires both myself and others to serve Radha and Krishna and to love them with all their hearts. Please, thank you so much. So let's start with some prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Okay, and let's start sharing screen. I should be able to do that. Right, share screen. Let me open it over here first. Okay. It's just so amazing to see so many of my loved ones here to support me. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay, I see Susan shaking her head, so I know that she can see it. Okay, so today, dear friends, I'm going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.318. And I'm just going to do the Sanskrit, the translation and the purport, because the purport's pretty long. I'm not going to do word for word. So, Ya atmano drishya guneshu saniti vyavasate swavitarekato buddhaha vinanuvadam nachatan manishitam samyagyatastyaktam upadadat puman. Ya atmano drishya guneshu saniti vyavasate swavitarekato buddhaha vinanuvadam nachatam manishitam samyak yatastyaktam upadadat puman. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Ki Jai. One who considers his visible body, which is a product of the three modes of nature, to be independent of the soul, is unaware of the basis of existence, and therefore he is a rascal. Those who are learned have rejected this conclusion, because one can understand through full discussion that with no basis in soul, the visible body and senses would be unsubstantial. Nevertheless, although his conclusion has been rejected, a foolish person considers it a reality. Purport. Without the basic principle of soul, the body cannot be produced. So-called scientists have tried in many ways to produce a living body in their chemical laboratories, but no one has been able to do it because unless the spirit soul is present, a body cannot be prepared from material elements. Since scientists are now enamored of theories about the chemical composition of the body, we have challenged many scientists to make even a small egg. The chemicals in eggs can be found very easily. There's a white substance and a yellow substance covered by a shell, and modern scientists should very easily be able to duplicate all this. But even if they were to prepare such an egg and put it in an incubator, this man-made chemical egg would not produce a chicken. The soul must be added because there is no question of a chemical combination for life. Those who think that life can exist without the soul have therefore been described here as abudaha, foolish rascals. Again, there are those who reject the body, regarding it as insubstantial. They are of the same category of fools. One can neither reject the body nor accept it as substantial. The substance is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and both the body and the soul are energies of the Supreme Godhead, as described by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 7.4.5. Bumirabonalo vayahu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bini prakritir astada apareyamitastuanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam daryate yagat. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 comprise my separated material energies. But besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mind, which consists of all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. The body, therefore, has a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the soul does. Since both of them are energies of the Lord, neither of them is false, because they come from reality. One who does not know the secret of life is described as abudaha. According to the Vedic injunctions, Aita datyam yam idam sarvam kalvidam brahma, everything is Supreme Brahman. Therefore, both the body and the soul are Brahman, since matter and spirit emanate from Brahman. Not knowing the conclusion of the Vedas, some people accept material nature as substance, and others accept the spirit soul as substance. But actually, Brahman is the substance. Brahman is the cause of all causes. The ingredients and the immediate cause of this manifested material world are Brahman, and we cannot make the ingredients of this world independent of Brahman. Furthermore, since the ingredients and the immediate cause of this material manifestation are Brahman, both of them are truth, Satya. There is no validity to the expression Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. The world is not false. Jnanis reject this world, and foolish persons accept this world as reality, and in this way they are both misguided. Although the body is not as important as the soul, we cannot say that it is false. Yet the body is temporary, and only foolish, materialistic persons who do not have full knowledge of the soul regard the body as false and acceptance of the body as all in all. Materialistic persons who do not have the full knowledge of the soul regard the body as false. Regard the body as false, and acceptance of the body as all in all can be avoided when one is fully situated in Krishna consciousness. If we regard this world as false, we fall into the category of asuras, who say that this world is unreal, with no foundation and no God in control. Asatyam aprishtam te yagat ahur anishvaram. As described in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, this is the conclusion of demons. So let's stop sharing so I can see everybody. Okay, everyone. It's time to do our prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Desatarine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter of his lotus feet. Our respectful obeisances are unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Saraswati Goswami. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Deva and delivering the Western countries, which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. I offer my obeisances unto Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadha, Shivas, and all the others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. O Krishna, O Radha, please engage me in your service. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Angel. Radhe Radhe. So today, my friends, I would like to speak on three main points that I saw when I was reading the verse and the purport. There are those who reject the material body and the world. What does that look like? Why is it foolish? Those who embrace only the material body and the world. Again, what does that look like and why is it foolish? And then finally, to finish with something hopeful, where's the balance between those two? What does that look like? And why is that not foolish? And why would that be wise? So let's start with one that honestly, it helped me to really learn, because it's not something that I hear about as much. So the first one is those who reject the material body in the world. What does that look like? So in the verse, just to go back to our verse where we hear that being spoken of in the purport, Prabhupada says, again, those who reject the body regarding it as insubstantial, they are of the same category as of fools, right? And though the body is not as important, we can't say that it's false. And those who do say that it's false, that it's unreal, that there's no foundation, that there's no God in control, they're just like the Asuras. And again, I'm paraphrasing here. That's because we just heard the word for word from Prabhupada. So again, we have this idea that in rejecting the material world, it's almost like this atheistic and impersonalistic view, which is really interesting because you would think atheistic is just, you're not thinking that God is true, but in the same way, this is atheistic as well. You're thinking, well, there's no God in control. There's nothing there. It's just the material world. That's atheistic. Yeah, that's very impersonal. So I promise that I'm not going to bring in too many quotes, but once you start going into classes like this, I feel like you start finding so much to share. But one of the things that I found that I really wanted to share about this point is in Bhagavad Gita 16.8, from the purport, Prabhupada says, the demonic conclude that the world is a phantasmagoria. There is no cause, no effect, no controller, no purpose. Everything is unreal. So again, very similar to the purport in today's verse, where Prabhupada is stating, like when you hear demoniac, you can kind of change it to materialistic. When you have that materialistic viewpoint, it's very impersonal. It's very atheistic. Nobody's in control. We can all do whatever we want. It's a free for all, right? And then another point to that is from Srimad Bhagavatam 8.1940. And this I will read because I want to make sure that I say this all correctly. When a tree is uprooted, it immediately falls down and begins to dry up. Similarly, if one doesn't take care of the body, which is supposed to be untruth, in other words, if the untruth is uprooted, the body undoubtedly becomes dry. So in the purport, in this regard, Srila Rupa Goswami says, one who rejects things without knowledge of their relationship to Krishna is incomplete in his renunciation. Bhakti Rasamirta Sindhu 1.266. When the body is engaged in the service of the Lord, one should not consider the body material. But Srila Rupa Goswami instructs, the body fully engaged in Krishna's service should not be neglected as material. One who does neglect it is false in his renunciation, and that's my emphasis, false in his renunciation. If the body is not properly maintained, it falls down and dries up like an uprooted tree, from which flowers and fruit can no longer be obtained. And I love that I'm talking about this analogy of a tree, and I see my dear sister Ashley in the corner because she's an herbalist and she's all about, our plant brothers and sisters. But again, it's this whole in this quote I wanted to share because there's the whole idea of being false in your renunciation, right? You think that it's not, rejecting the material world is not something that we only see in people that are demoniac or materialistic. We can also kind of stray in it, even if we're spiritual folk, right? Because we may feel like, oh no, like I don't want anything to do with the material world, but it can kind of lead us to that false renunciation, because if we're not taking care of the body, if it just dries up, then it can't give those fruits and flowers. And what are those fruits and flowers? And we'll speak to that more in the third point, but that's devotional service. That's serving the Lord. Those are those fruits and flowers that the body can give in that relationship to the Lord. So it's so important when it comes to the material world for us to understand our connection, that the connection that the material world has to the Lord and the connection to devotional service. And to just kind of wrap up this point a little bit, I wanted to share a really sweet anecdote. I thought it was sweet that I heard from Satyananda Swami. He did a podcast with Chaitanya Sharam Prabhu, who's both of these learned men, just devotees, are so favorites of mine. But if anybody's interested later on, I can always share the links to all of these. So in the podcast, Satyananda Swami shares how he came to Krishna consciousness from a really wealthy family. And he had a very opulent material life. And therefore, when he came to Krishna consciousness, he almost wanted to do the opposite. He wanted to be very, very renounced. He was just like, I was really good at being, rich and enjoying the materialistic splendors that I had. So now I'm going to be the best at being renounced. So he shared, and this is in his own words, he said that for a year, he ate only an apple and a few raisins a day. That's it. And he became so emaciated and weak that he couldn't focus on anything. And what saved him? The saved him was another devotee. Another devotee came up to him, thank you to that devotee, and said, this is not good for bhakti. This is not good for devotional service. So again, and he goes on in this podcast to talk about more of these ways that we can feel like we're renouncing the material world, but in a way we're kind of not, we're still being egotistic, right? And I'm not saying that Satyananda Swami is egotistic, because that's far from the point, but it's just like when we're kind of not taking care of the body and we're feeling like I have to be the best at renouncing. And he even said in this talk, he said there can be an element of pride involved and we have to be careful about that. And he spoke about how focusing on renouncing everything material is still in a way keeping ourselves in the center instead of Krishna, right? Because we're saying like, I'm going to be the best at renouncing. I'm going to renounce everything. What are we renouncing? These things are not even ours, right? So to kind of review this point, rejecting the material body and the world is also a way to be ungrateful to Krishna. And we can't grow a love for Krishna when we reject what he has given us. So there's that first point. It's a bit heavy, but I think we can move on to the second point, which I'm sure the second point we're all very familiar with. We hear about it a lot in class, right? Who are these people who embrace only the material body and the world? What does that look like? Why is that foolish? So one of the quotes that I found that I felt really illustrated this was from Bhagavad Gita 3.27 in the purport Prabhupada shares. And this I'll read word for word because it's so great. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under control of Krishna. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently, and that is a symptom of his nescience or nescience. I always forget how to pronounce that, but it's ignorance, right? I see Harmangi trying to help me. She's like, I'll help you with the pronunciation. So this part of the purport I wanted to share because it's so important when understanding the second point about people who fully embrace the material world and only the material world in their bodies, it's that they don't understand their true roles. And the reason why I want to bring that up, because in the third point, I really want to bring up that idea of compassion, of us having compassion for others, right? So if we understand why these people are doing this, and by I say these people, I'm very much in that as well, right? I'm not a pure devotee. There's moments when I forget my relationship to the material nature, that it comes from Krishna, right? I'm not the doer, and that Krishna is in control of everything, and that it's not my place to take credit for everything, right? It's through Krishna's mercy, it's through the mercy of the devotees that things are happening, that I'm getting those blessings. So another point that I found really relevant, and again, I'm not going to go into it too much because we hear about it a lot in classes, is in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.10 purport. Prabhupada talks about the dangers of sense gratification. We've heard this so many times, right? That because of being focused only on the materialistic, on the material body, we fall into the trap of kind of getting into that wheel of sense gratification, right? We're always striving for sense gratification. We're always trying to fulfill that. And where does it lead? It leads to wars. It leads to so much misery in the world, because we can never be satisfied. And I was actually hearing, it was actually Ashley Prabhu, who's here. She was talking about that, how Rukmini, who's a teacher of ours, Rukmini Walker Prabhu, who we both admire, she's always talking about the God-sized hole, right? And I'm sure that she got that from Prabhupada, right? So in sense gratification, we're always seeking that to fill that God-sized hole, but it's never going to be filled. But if, again, going back to the previous point, if the people who are stuck in the materialistic, if they don't understand the relationship of the material world to Krishna, to the spiritual, then how are they going to know that? How are they going to know? So the anecdote that I felt was really relevant to this, and just as a quick note, within all this, again, it's that whole idea that if we're stuck to the materialistic, if we're stuck to just the concept of the material world, obviously we're going to be stuck in the samsara, right? In the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So that's just a given, and all the miseries that go within that. So these are all things that we hear all the time. Now, Chaitanya Charan, he has a really great service that he does, where he does a Gita daily, where he writes these beautiful, inspirational, very short writings, and then he shares those daily. And you can actually sign up for an email and get those to your inbox. This is not a paid advertisement. I'm just saying it's very great. And he shares about how in the material world, addiction, there's millions of people who are addicted. And he talks about how it could range from anything as mild as food or video games to lethal things like gambling, drugs, so on and so on. And he talks about how in Bhagavad Gita 339, he warns that desire directed towards matter is insatiable, burning within us like a fire. So again, it's that God-sized soul. It's insatiable. You can't fill it. And then it burns us up. And we feel like we're trying to put out this fire with indulgence, but if anything, it just makes it bigger. And one of the original questions are like, where do we see this? How does this look like when people are just stuck to the material? We see this in addiction and all the different variations of addiction. And I bring that up because I feel that that's something that we can all relate to in some way or another. I'm sure every single person on this call, we all have something that we're addicted to, right? It can be mild or it could be extreme, or we could have been, or we may still have that temptation, but we can have that compassion for those that are experiencing that, because that's something that we can all experience. So to review this point, focusing on embracing everything material continues to be that ego-driven idea that we're keeping ourselves in the center, right, instead of Krishna. So it's very similar in that way to the first point. And it also keeps us in the space of relating to the world and to other living beings only by their material qualities, right? So we see this in racism, we see this in sexism, we see this in speciesism, right? When speciesism, the isms always get me. I get tongue-tied with those. But it's like we're just relating to these jivas by their physical bodies. That's the problem. Then it's a source of addiction. It's a source of miseries. And it leaves us stuck in that cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And then when we're embracing the material body, only and the material world, and we're denying anything spiritual, again, that's us being ungrateful to Krishna. We're not acknowledging that Krishna is the source, and we can't grow our love for Krishna if we reject him in that way. So those are two really heavy points. Thank you for hanging on with me on this. I really appreciate it, because I really wanted to finish up with something hopeful and something practical, because I don't know about you, that's something that really speaks to me, is just kind of leaving ourselves with that practicality. So in the purport, Prabhupada, in the verse that we're speaking about today, 10.3.18, he kind of gives us an idea of where this balance can be. He says, one who neither rejects the body nor finds it insubstantial, they are able to see that the substance of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not reading the quote directly. And the one part that I do want to read is where he says, both of these pitfalls, the rejection of the body as false and the acceptance of the body as all in all, can be avoided when one is fully situated in Krishna consciousness. Right? So there's our lifeline. There's our hope, my dear devotees, is Krishna consciousness, is being in that God consciousness. That's where we can find that balance. Yeah, I see some people putting their hands up. Yep. It's a hallelujah. It's a Haribo moment. Yeah, there is hope. There is hope. And one of the texts that I found that was really inspiring me was in Srimad Bhagavatam 8.1940. Prabhupada talks in the purport. He says that activities performed with the help of the body for the satisfaction of the absolute truth, which is Krishna, right, are never temporary, although they are performed by the temporary body, right? So that because this body is temporary and not permanent, we can't not expose the body to being devoured by a tiger. Okay, and modern translation, right? Like we can't just jump in front of a car and let it hit us. You know, there's so many ways that there's tigers in this modern world, or killed by an enemy. All precautions should be taken to protect the body, right? So these bodies that we have are such a gift from Krishna, right? He's like, well, if you have to be in the material world, let me give you these human bodies so that you can still, have devotional service, so you can serve the devotees, so you can serve me, so you can come back to the spiritual world. And if you don't want to come back to the spiritual world and you're a pure devotee and you want to continue serving Krishna here in the material world, that's fine too. He'll give you a material body for that as well. We see that as well. And one of the ways, again, so that practical view, how do we see this practically? Right. So in a lecture that Prabhupada was giving in New York, he was speaking about Bhagavad Gita 2.48 and 4.9. And he said, your eating is also God consciousness. Your sleeping is also God consciousness. And we have to mold our life's activities in that way. You have to think, I have to keep this body fit for working for God. And then if we think in that way, then we're not in that bodily conception of life. Right? So here's Prabhupada speaking to us in that very beautiful and practical way, because he was so compassionate and he was so ready to kind of meet people where they were. And this is where we are, right? I mean, anybody here, raise your hand if anybody here doesn't need to sleep. Does anybody here not need to sleep? Okay, I see Brajali laughing. She's like, yeah, no, not me. Does anybody here not need to eat? No? Any air yogis? No. Okay, that's what I thought. Exactly. We're all in this together. So we can all bring that God consciousness to these day-to-day things that we're doing. And another kind of personal anecdotes. It was so hard to pick which anecdotes to pick from Prabhupada to share about this point, because he so exemplified that compassion of caring for others and seeing that as service, like wanting to care for the well-being, not just physical, but mental well-being of his disciples and the people around him. So he wrote a letter to one of his disciples, Raya or Rama, in 1967. And he said, be careful about your health first. This information is not only for you, but all my noble sons. And that's implied that it's also all his daughters and all his spiritual family and everybody else, right? He said, I am an old man. I may live or die, but it doesn't matter. You must live for a long time to push on this Krishna consciousness movement. So there's our motivation, friends. That's why we have to take care of ourselves, because we have, this gift that has been given to us, yes, from Radha and Krishna, but it's been passed down from Srila Prabhupada and by all of his disciples and his spiritual family that we're a part of here in ISKCON, in the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, right? To continue the Krishna conscious movement. That's our goal. And I can relate so strongly to that, because I don't know how much I've shared in class, probably not much, but some of you know that I struggle with some health problems. I became very, very ill in 2018. And I became so ill that I actually had to leave my full-time work. I used to do customer service, and I was like that one customer service person that maybe you've spoken to that's like really chipper on the phone, that you probably either got mad at because they were so chipper, or you really appreciated it. I don't know which one you're in, but I felt like that was my service, and Krishna was just like, no, that's not your service right now. And I became really ill, and at the time it was a little difficult to let that go, because I felt like I was the doer. This is how I could do, right? Like, this is where I was doing things. And Krishna was like, yeah, no, you need to just relax and focus on taking care of your body. And at the time, that was really hard for me, because I had this sense, and I don't know if anybody else, when you come in contact with the devotees, and it could just have been my kind of filter that I had, I got a sense that in Krishna consciousness, it seemed to me that we were supposed to reject our bodies. We were supposed to reject everything material, right? We're not supposed to take care of ourselves. We're supposed to just, chant and do service. And if we get sick or if we're exhausted, well, that's too bad. Like, that's not as important. And I had that struggle in my head. And it was thanks to the compassionate devotees that I met at the Bhakti Center, and especially Rukmini Prabhu was one of those devotees who explained to me that no, Prabhupada actually was always concerned about the health of his disciples. And he was always talking, he's starting his letters and finishing his letters and wishing them the best of health and telling them to focus on their health first. And then if possible, then, working on the sadhana. And that really helped me, because I really struggled with that. I was just like, I can't do anything. And during that time, yeah, it was really hard, because you're just like, my material body, my spiritual practice, and you're kind of like stuck in this battle in between the two. But it doesn't have to be a battle, my friends. It doesn't have to be a battle, because as we've seen through some of these quotes, and hopefully you're seeing a little bit of what I'm trying to share, is that taking care of our bodies. And Prabhupada uses an example in another anecdote that I want to briefly share, because I do want to finish in time with lots of questions and answers, because there's so many friends here and I want to hear your thoughts. He gives the analogy of the body as a car, right? So that the car is, we don't identify with the car. We don't say, I am my car, right? But we still want to take care of it, because our car's going to take us to a destination. But it's important to have a goal in mind. And this Satchidananda Swami mentioned that talk that he did with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, which I heartily recommend. He says you have to have a goal, right? Because if you don't have a goal, then your car is you're just driving for fun. God knows where you're going to go with that car, right? I don't even want to imagine. But if you have your goal in mind, if you have the goal of Radha and Krishna, if you have your goal of devotional service, if you have your goal of remembering Krishna and always loving Krishna, and gotta say it, how wonderful is Krishna, right? For Adi Purusha Prabhu, who's beautifully doing garlands right now, right? If we have that goal in mind, then we know where that car is going to go, right? We know where that car is going to go, and we know that we need to take care of it so that we can get to that goal. And that's what's important. And to finish off, yeah, let's take all those cars to Krishna, right? Let's go there. And one of the things I want to finish off is a quote from, again, I feel like right now, probably her ears are burning because I'm talking about her so much, right? Rukmini Devi Dasi, Rukmini Walker Prabhu. She says, I think we have to create a culture that really imbibes and follows the mood of Prabhupada's care, of Krishna's care for all living beings. And then people will be so overwhelmed by this culture of care, these beautiful, shining, luminous people who care so much. The ISKCON Society should be celebrated in the world as the most caring culture, because that's our philosophy. That's the sacred spirit that is there in every living being. So how do we act? How do we treat the environment? How do we treat other people? How do we treat people who look different from me or act different from the way I act? It has to go from book into the heart. Otherwise, it's just lip service, right? So it has to go, it can't just be in the head, it has to be in the heart. And that's the inspiration, my friends. That's where we can go, right? Each one of us, regardless of where we are in life, we can care for ourselves and we can care for our circle of people around us, right? We can be that compassion, we can be that love, we can show them how much Krishna loves them by how we act. And I don't mean to get emotional, but I've received that from the devotees. So what's the least that I can do? I can do that for others as well. So let's grow our love for Radha and Krishna by growing our love for their gifts, right? Our gifts are the material world and these bodies. And even if we have health problems and our bodies bring us pain all the time, it's still such a gift, right? Like another brief anecdote. When I was asked by dear Ananta Bihari Prabhu to give this class, I had just the day before I had been to the doctor and she had given me some bad news about kind of like a reversal in my health that was not really making me very happy. I was very sad and I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. I'm going to be 100% honest here, folks. You know, like I said, I'm not a pure devotee. I'm not exalted. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was like, really, Krishna? Like just when I thought that I could kind of get used to these health problems and then you hit me with this. But I was really in that sense. And then all of a sudden, Nanda Bihari Prabhu asked me that morning if I would be willing to do this service. And Rajalila and Leela Prabhu can attest. And also Jamuna Jaya and I have had this conversation where I felt myself very unqualified. You know, I was not going to be one to give Srimad Bhagavatam class. That's not for me. Like I'm not initiated. I haven't done the Bhakti Shastri course. Like, I mean, the reasons I gave, I'm sure everybody got tired of hearing all of the things. But in that moment, I saw Krishna's mercy. I heard through Ananda Bihari's WhatsApp message, right? Because WhatsApp can be God conscious, that Krishna was saying, hey, Andrea, you may have all these health problems, but you can still serve the devotees in this way. Look how merciful I am. And this is Krishna, not me. Look how merciful Krishna is, that you can have all these health problems, but he still gives you all these ways to serve, right? So let's be grateful for that. Let's acknowledge that it all comes from Krishna, whether it hurts or it doesn't. It all comes from Krishna, and we can be grateful. And that third point, right, that balance. So we had the renunciation is the jnana. We have the embracing the material is like that karma. And then the third point, the balance, is bhakti. And in bhakti, we're awakening those spiritual emotions of the heart and we're offering them back to Radha and Krishna so that we can serve them with love and devotion. And I was going to review all the points, but I feel like I've reviewed them already. So I don't want to go much longer, but I just want to leave you with another Chaitanya Charan Prabhu kind of like, he has this beautiful way of kind of working with words. And he says, we tend to either demonize the world, romanticize the world, but ultimately we hope to utilize the world in Krishna's service, right? So I leave for this question and answer period that we're going to open up to you, open up to everyone. If you can't think of something, here's some questions. Can you identify with any of these 3 points? And also, what actions can you take inspired by the points shared in class today? I would love to hear your thoughts and prayers. And to finish, I would just like to offer my prayers. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanevyo vaishnavevyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thank you so much, friends. The floor is yours, Ananda Bihari Prabhu, you're my host.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Andrea, beautiful, heartfelt, touching presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much for being who you are. Andrea, we love you. Thank you very much. You did fantastic. It was shastrik, it was engaging, and nobody fell asleep. Henry wasn't falling asleep. No, Hemangi wasn't falling asleep. It is so nice. Thank you very much. And the chat box is exploding. It's unbelievable. Andrea, thank you very much. Okay, so here's I wanted to reflect. I really like that the point that you made, how whether it hurts or it doesn't, it's coming from Krishna. And what should continue is our, whether it hurts or it doesn't, we have to go on with our
devotional service.
Devotional service, right. And this body is a gift, even though whether it hurts or it doesn't, it's a gift from Krishna. Right? And it can be engaged in devotional service in so many ways. Like I am cleaning the bathroom right now, look. And but it's blissful. It's blissful. I'm using this body in the devotional service. I'm cleansing my heart, which is like a bathroom, and everybody. And my service is being a toilet. My daughter dumps stuff on me. My wife dumps stuff on me. So many other things happen. But I'm happy to be this toilet. And I have a big pipe in the back attached to my lower part. And this big pipe, that's where it all goes. I'm channeled. I'm channeling it all. That was a bad analogy. But the thing is, we have to be attached to the big pipe, which is Krishna. Krishna, please forgive me. That's a terrible analogy. But yeah, we have to channel, because otherwise we will overflow, and it will overflow back on my daughter and my wife. So our channel is devotional service, our sadhana. We may go hug a tree. Who's the tree hugger here on the call? Who's the herbalist? Ashley? Yeah. So maybe she can speak something to that. How we hug a tree and then it all gets channeled. All right, I don't know where I'm going with this. So I'm talking too much. Please, dear devotees, share your reflections, appreciations for Andrea, questions.
We have Ashley has her hand up, so maybe she can unmute herself and she can start.
Hi, Hare Krishna, Andrea Prabhu. What a lovely talk. I enjoyed that so deeply. And gosh, I have lots of notes here and little bits that I picked up. So I'll just share a few of my takeaways. And then I did have a question. So I loved the God-sized whole, because that just makes so much sense to me. I loved how you brought in the element of people. One thing that we all have in common is addiction, and the ways we try to fill that hole. And I think that's a great way of having compassion for one another, because it's like, no matter what it is, we're all seeking something, and we're trying our best. But there's no satisfaction except for Krishna, and finding that God-shaped and sized, service that we can enter and put in. I also love the idea of the culture of care. I thought that was so beautiful that you gathered from Rukmini. And so my question to you, as you were so kind to share your story with us about your own health challenges, and this idea of really caring for the body. My question to you was around restful service. I feel like we're all in this culture taught to push and really extend beyond our own means and our own energy reserves. So maybe you could share a little bit about, what does restful service look like? Like how can we offer service in a way that is still nourishing us, and maybe you have any personal stories or personal insights about how that's done.
Oh, Ashley Prabhu, hitting me with the hard questions. And the reason why I say that, and thank you, first off, before I answer your question, thank you for being here. Thank you for, I was actually listening to your second video on sobriety yesterday. And that's why I was just like, oh, there's just so much that I want to share. But yeah, Ashley Prabhu has a YouTube channel for her herbalist work, and she's been cooperating, kind of working together with Rukmini Prabhu to do a series. We're talking to people about bhakti in a way that they can relate to. So I definitely recommend that. And Ashley, please put the link to your YouTube on the chat. But to answer your question, how is a way for us to do devotional service in a way that is gentle? Yeah, Angelica, hugging a devotee is service and it's very restful. That's true. And I missed that. I think for the first time in almost, like, what was it, 4 months, Leela Prabhu, did I get to see you and I got to hug you. And that, yes, and that felt like such beautiful service. I feel like when that happens, that comes because we're honoring our boundaries, right? We're understanding what our boundaries are and where we are in terms of, if we do have health problems, what's our energy levels? Where are we? I know that Rukmini Prabhu's always on me for, like, don't do too much, like, take care of yourself, because, we're like little candles, right? We're little jiva souls, and while we're in these bodies, we have a certain amount of energy, and if we're not aware of our boundaries and our limits, we can burn ourselves out, and then there's going to be no service that's going to be done, right? Like, so we can't just go 0 to 60. We have to find that balance and that midpoint. And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's really what resonates for me, is just that those boundaries and that balance, and remembering that if Srila Prabhupada, who was a pure devotee, was always inquiring. I had an anecdote that I didn't get a chance to share, where he would stop his Vyasa pujas to ask about the well-being of the devotees there. Okay, like, just let that sink in. He would stop his Vyasa puja to stop and ask people and then he would say to them, he was like, if you need anything, let me know, right? If you need anything, ask me. Yeah. And remembering, listening is a service, and that is quiet. Exactly. And again, and that is a service that, again, we have to set boundaries, right? We have to set boundaries in terms of, are we trained to listen to someone who's going through something that, if they're suicidal or if they're dealing with really hard addictions, like, do we have the training to help them in that way? We kind of have to think of that as well. But yeah, in all these things, I feel like that's where it is. Like, we have to see where we are in our Krishna consciousness, right? Because a really advanced devotee can probably be in the space to deal with someone that's very angry, and it's not going to affect them. And maybe that's not something that I could do, right? So does that answer your question at all, Ashley Prabhu? Yeah, okay, great. And then I see that Bhakta Hugo. I have never met Bhakta Hugo. You have your hand up. Please feel free to unmute yourself. Can't hear you. Is your audio on? I like how he gives us a little dance while he fixes it. He's like, we could all do Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Can you try speaking now, Prabhu? Oh, he's frozen. Oh, how sad. Wait, there you are.
How about now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
go
wonderful.
for it. Thank
All
you.
Right, wonderful. Dear Andrea Devi, that was a really spectacular class. So thank you so much for sharing this topic of how our health and how our body relates to our spiritual save. It's such an important topic. And there were so many things that inspired so many things in my mind. But one of the things that you said is that by developing our love for Krishna, and by doing that through developing love for ourselves and our body and taking care of ourselves in a way that we can serve, we can show others how much Krishna loves them. That was such a beautiful statement. I loved it. But there are a lot of examples from Srila Prabhupada that I thought of regarding kind of how the devotee isn't really in their material body. It's said again and again, when someone is engaging in spiritual activities, they're in the spiritual body. And actually just yesterday, I was listening to a Remembering Srila Prabhupada from Govinda Dasi, and she recounted one story that was very interesting, where Srila Prabhupada once called her into his room, and he looked very grave, very like serious. And she goes, "Oh, someone did something." and so he hands her back to Godhead magazine, the most recent printing, and he says, "Look at the back cover." And she looks at the back cover, and there's like there's some graphics there, and it's a picture of Srila Prabhupada, and it said, "This man has changed the world." And it was very slick graphics. It looked really neat. And so he goes, "Okay, look at that." And she goes, "Okay, I'm looking at it." And he goes, "This is very problematic. This is very bad." And she goes, "Well, what's the problem?" And he goes, "The spiritual master should never be considered a man. He is never on the platform of a man. He is the spiritual master," right? And so he went on, and he just went on and on about this, and he instructed the devotees who made this kind of statement. But not only this, in this case, it was the spiritual master, but also in the case of the devotee. The devotee isn't white or black or man or woman or isn't any of these things. When we engage in spiritual activities, that's the platform we're working on. And that can be hard to like tangibly like, oh yeah, that is the way it is. You know, it's just a theory for us for now. But through our shastras and acharyas, we're taught this and we can learn to experience it. And then in terms of a personal anecdote, I'm employed in the US Navy in the military, and I'm undergoing training right now. And the environment there isn't very conducive to good health. Usually, people, I mean, if you look at any of the recycling bins in the building, you know, they'll be filled with Monster drinks and Red Bulls and iced coffee cans and all these kinds of things. Everyone's getting 6 hours of sleep, and everyone's pushing so hard. And something I've noticed, I came into the training about a month ago, and about once a week, or more frequently even than once a week, people have started approaching me, you know, because of my spiritual practice, because of my practice of good health. I don't even do anything. I don't do any preaching or what have you, but people, you know, someone made the comment to me, the person sitting next to me, they go, "You know, Hugo, you seem like a really holistic person. What do you do? Like, what do you eat?" You know, or just yesterday when I was leaving the building, I ended up having an hour conversation with someone just about good health and holistic living and things like that. And this made me reflect that when, as devotees, as spiritual practitioners, we're upkeeping ourselves in a holistic way and taking care of ourselves, the thing is, when we identify with the body, there's not really an inspiration to do that. It's, I mean, you know, I want to be healthy. I mean, what does that mean? Why? But if I want to be healthy for Krishna, now that's an inspiration. And others see that and they react to that. And so we can not only heal ourselves through that, but by healing ourselves, we can inspire others to heal themselves as well. And so that was kind of a personal reflection I had on that. But again, thank you for the beautiful class. Many inspirations on that point, but I think it's a really wonderful topic, and I think you shared really beautifully. So thank you.
Thank
Hare
you so
Krishna.
much, Bhakta Hugo. Hare Krishna. And thank you for bringing in that personal anecdote of, you know, your life within the military, because it's so important, at least for me, to be able to relate these heavy topics that we hear of, the philosophy, and kind of bring it into a practical, like, how are devotees actually doing this in their day-to-day lives? That's so important. So thank you so much for sharing that. And it's that living by example.
Absolutely.
And I see that Leela Prabhu has her hand up. Leela Prabhu.
Hi, Krishna, my dear friend. I love you so much. I also wanted to just acknowledge and appreciate Dr. Hugo's point. Very nice. I appreciated all of that, and that you're taking bhakti into an institution like the military, which is just amazing. So thank you, my dear friend. Beautiful, beautiful class. I actually have to go, but I wanted to say that when you said this, we can't grow our love for Krishna if we reject the gifts that he's given us. That just blew my mind. It's amazing. And to always keep our eyes open for what is a gift, where is his mercy, where am I being blessed, everything, our associations, everything that we have, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, everything is a moment to take stock and say, hey, I have this and I'm grateful. And I'm so grateful for your association, and your words are so powerful. I'm so happy to hear you speak, and I'm learning so much from you all the time. It's never ending. So I just wanted to thank you for everything that you shared. I'm gonna carry it with me for the rest of the day and beyond. And yeah, great job. I love you so much. Thank you.
And
Hare
thank you
Krishna.
for inspiring me, as always, and encouraging me. Leela Prabhu was one of those people that was just like, you could do it. You could give a class. I mean, my husband, Paul, was also very much one of those people a long time ago as well. But yeah, so thank you. And oh, I see Susan Prabhu has her hand up. Susan Prabhu, please unmute. Let's hear from you. You have to hit your.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I'm driving in the car. You are so thoughtful, brilliant, kind. Your sharing was just so heartful and wise, and you've just touched me. And I know you've touched everyone very, very deeply. I'm so grateful. And I'm just proud of you. That chanting was like beyond sweet. And thank you, dear friend.
Thank you, Susan Prabhu. And thank you for illustrating that analogy about driving the car. And here you are doing that, right?
I
not
had
associating with your car. You don't think you are your car, right?
I had to get in this stupid car, and it was the wrong morning to have to be in a car. But
you're
not
spiritualizing
driving.
it.
So thank you.
Thank you, Susan Prabhu. And I know that there's a lot of comments in the chat, and I believe that I wanted to read one. I saw something from Jamuna Jaya that she said that she had to leave. I think it was Jamuna Jaya. Yes. She said, I'm about to get on a train, so I cannot speak, but thank you, Andrea, today and every day. You teach even when you do not speak, like St. Francis. I pray for your health because I am selfish and I want you to be with us for a long time. Thank you so much. I didn't actually finish reading it. So thank you so much. And I see Brajalila Prabhu had her hand up. Brajalila Prabhu.
Herbal, Andrea. So sorry. I had to go at 8 o'clock. I just wanted to thank you. I am just feeling so blessed and so honored to be able to sit here and listen to you share so much courage and so much love. Thank you, my dear heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brajalila Prabhu. And I know that you wrote something in the chat, so I'll read that later. I have my my tech support, Paul, my husband, he says he's gonna grab the stuff from the chat so that I don't lose it. So thank you. I know that it's 8 o'clock and we're trying to finish on time. There's just so much time that I can do sitting down, but if anybody else has anything else that they want to share or ask, I know you're probably all going easy on me because it's my first time giving class and nobody's asked a hard question. Like I was.
Angelica has a hard question. Angelica,
yeah, she has a hard question. Where's her hard question? Where's my dear Angelica?
Haribo. Well, I was supposed to say something and now I'm thinking, should I ask a question then? Maybe I will say another time. I mean, it was a beautiful class. I just wanted to share that I was reminded of a point how Prabhupada, as a pure devotee, also exemplified that a devotee is perfect in all aspects of their life. Like he himself was a great businessman because he knew the mind, and he was an amazing friend to everybody, and he was also really attuned to nature because of his relationship with Krishna and because of his natural tendency to be so humble and so attuned to everything around him. And so that just, is so inspiring to connect with and realizing that when we really go deep into the practice, our character shifts and changes so much that it naturally infuses every other aspect of our life. And then it just also reminds me how I was observing devotees as I was coming to the movement, and it was amazing to see them loving in their interactions with their husbands, their wives, their friends, and they also were like really good with children, and they could understand children well, and they could also understand the connection to nature and all these things. So that was that. That was my reflection. And hard question next time for your next class.
Okay, hard question next time, Angelica Prabhu. Thank you for inspiring. And I see that dearest Bhima Das Prabhu has his hand up. Please, Prabhu, unmute yourself.
Haribo, Andrea, unbelievable. These classes are so endearing because they go from heart to heart. There's of course the Shastra, and breaking it down, parsing it out. Also, this situation that you addressed with that we have this denial tendency to deny the body. That was one of my hesitations in joining the movement because I was studying nutrition at that time. I was an athlete in college and stuff. And at that time, this is the early 80s, 1980, devotees were very much into starving themselves and treating themselves poorly because we're not this body and the body's just a lump of material ignorance with a pathway of network. But so that kind of took over, and we are now just sort of rising out of that into a more healthy look into, well, this is what we use to do our service. This is what we do to express our affection towards the devotees, to our guru and to Krishna. And so we have to have this. You don't throw away the pen. You write a beautiful poem. So I think what your class is a beautiful poem, and it was very heartfelt. And during that class, something flew into my eye, and I started having watery eyes. So I wasn't affected at all by your.
Thank you so much.
Out on a limb here. These wonderful classes given by yourself, Angelica, Jason, devotees who have been around for years, are non-initiated, but the classes are just unbelievable, so heartfelt, so authentic, so down to earth. And I just want everybody to know that they're this is going to be tough. They're trying to put an end to these, and there's going to be this list, a short list of only authoritative lecturers and stuff like that. I think that everybody should try to get together and petition to either continue this open format where devotees are encouraged to give wonderful wonderful classes like yourself, instead of just going back to the old format, which is closed. A closed format with a closed loop of lecturers that are, everyone to give lectures. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bhima Prabhu. Yeah. Sorry, you cut off a little bit, but we did hear you. And thank you for encouraging all of us that, yeah, even though we're not initiated, because we can still do some kind of service. And thank you for saying that, because for a lot of times I thought, this is not something I can do unless I'm initiated. So having that encouragement from the other devotees who are saying that that's not necessarily the case, that we can still serve regardless of that is really important. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And I just wanted to read, well, actually, there's just too many comments that I wanted to read, but Nietzsche Prabhu, who's actually a mentor of mine, her and Gaurakumar Das Prabhu, they're mentors of my husband and I. We're part of the mentor program in the Bhakti Center. Plug for the mentor program at the Bhakti Center. Highly recommend. Really, again, talk about that personal attention, right? That radical personalism. You can have a mentor and you get to meet with them once a month, and they help you kind of keeping your sadhana charts and kind of keeping accountable for everything. But she had a really great comment where she said, thank you for driving the point about bringing in the balance in our devotional service while paying attention to our boundaries. As Srila Prabhupada says in the purport of 10.14.8, the pain that devotees experience is not a karmic reaction, but Krishna's special mercy on us to expedite our spiritual growth. What you're doing is an amazing service in spite of your health problems. Thank you so much. But thank you for bringing in that quote about, just kind of seeing how we can use all of this in Krishna's mercy. With Krishna's mercy, we can use it to serve the devotees. But I don't want to go too late. Ananda Bihari Prabhu, should we stop now? I think Bhima just had his hand up because he was talking. But
yeah, Andrea, thank you very much. And one little point: when we give class, we'll learn. We learn by giving class. We learn. The speaker learns big time. Yeah. When they prepare for class, when we give class, it's a learning experience for us. So, Andrea, thank you very much. Yeah, for taking the courage. It was beautiful. You share your beauty, your spiritual beauty with us in this class. And Paul, thank you very much for your tech support, for loving Andrea. It's very sweet. Okay, Thank you very much. I love you all. Dr. Hugo, you have a beautiful smile. Are you on the battleship or something? What's that kitchen?
Am I what?
And on the battleship, on the warship?
I'm not on a battleship yet. I'm still a little comfortable here.
Hey, we can't wait until you tune in from a battleship. Okay, Hemangi, good seeing you. Good seeing you. Akiko-chan, Pat, Suzanne, Dion, Bhima Prabhu, everybody who's driving, everybody who's riding the horse, everybody taking a shower in the morning. Arjuna Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Kartik, Angel, Dana Kelly Das, Gora Kumar, the mentor. He's a tough mentor, I tell you. And he gave you an approval. So that's good. Okay, have a wonderful day. Don't neglect your body. Don't get overwhelmed by the body, but engage your body in devotional service. And it will no longer be temporary and embarrassing. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
You're loving.
Om
Hare
Tat Sat.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Have a good day.